How are you doing today? This is Harold with Papa Bear Peppers, and today I wanted to explain a few things because y'all, I know you've seen me like a broken record talking about my nectar for the gods. But first of all, I want to give you a little tour of what's going on here in the greenhouse, and then I'll get into what, you know, I was just having thoughts last night and wanted to talk about it. So here we go. Around. So first of all, here is my big old, these are my Podzilla Purple Longs from Brian Seal. And over here, I just topped both of these. These are my BTRs, and trust me, I got a lot of growth. A little bit of, you see right there, a little bit of slug damage, but I'm about to handle that, put a slug beer trap in here. And then we got a couple chocolate bootlaws right there, and they're starting to come in. They're finally really taking off and getting their new leaves. Over here we got the Naga E strains. And I moved back here and I got the Primatalis right back there. And now this one here is my Reaper Row right here. And these things are just turning into beasts. I'll tell you what. Look at the foliage on these things. They're getting big. So that's my Reaper Row. We move over here. That's my little lemon tree. It's just something I play with in here. And get back here. This is my chocolate Moruga. Look at this in here. Let's go back in here. Already got peppers clustering up. There's more in here. Right inside of there. And yeah, so that thing's loading up with peppers. Got flowers all over it, peppers all over it. Look at this thing here. This is my chocolate carbaruga. And just, I mean, there is flowers everywhere on this Hummer. Loaded up with flowers. And they're already, you know, you can see the pods are forming on it. So, let's see if we got them in there. Yeah. Got one right in there. They're actually all over the place. So, look at this. And I mean, here's the height on that. And I bet you I got, probably 200 flowers on it. I'm no kidding. Like, at least 150 if I took time to count. There's flowers, and then there's the starch. And here's the trick on that. Nothing's falling off. They're all on there. And we'll get into that in a minute. But then here, over here, got my death spirals starting to load up. Now these ones are a slow, they're actually late starts. These are my, I started these late. These are chocolate champions. And I just topped that one because, yeah, why not? They're in a greenhouse. They're going to grow fast. They're going to get big. This beast here is another one that one actually was initially started in my arrow garden. I brought it out. You can see the comparison. This one was organic on the soil. That was arrow garden, but a long time they've been out, and man, this one just continues to turn into a big old pig. And then back here I got some Fatalis, and you can see I got a little light on them right now, and that's just to push the grow, because I want these to get bigger, and so the light's actually directed more at them. And I got some more up here. There's a little gator jigsaw. These are leftovers, really. And I got a little chocolate champion right here. This one was actually, I thought it was left for dead, but now it's starting to get color and leaf up, so it'll be all right. Another Fatali, a Fatali. I put some Fatalis in because I wanted to make sure I had them. What I really wanted to get into today, because I know y'all probably like going, man, he's just, what is he, a spokesperson? Is he a salesman for that? I said, no. When it comes to nectar for the gods, I'm a grower and I know what I want. And so I do on these plants, they're all getting a Spartan Regiment. And that, just so you know, I'm getting ready to do this indoor grow. So I can like go from seed to fruit. And I'll be using my Spider Farmer light. And I'm going to be using my Nectar for the Gods line. and getting ready to, I'm checking out what tent I want to use. So anybody's got anything, I know there's Gorilla tents, but you know, I already got my light. Actually, I got an SF, a Spider Farmer SF 1000 and an SF 2000, and they were in here for a while when I was really pushing grow in here. So I've got that, so all I need really is the tent, and I'm going to be pushing it. But so what I want to do is go over what do I do, is what I got here. Now this is what I want to start with. This is called One Shot, and this is from Nectar from the Gods, and this is a granule formulation. Why am I starting with this? Because if I was going to do just one thing, and I could, let's say that's all I could afford, just one thing, I would get this. This is a granulated, what they call it is frilled, and let me give you, hopefully I can give you an idea. You can see how that is. You can go on the ocgfam.com on YouTube and see how they actually make this. Extremely organic in what they do. They don't cook it together, nothing. This is organically dried and everything. And just so you see on the back, I'll read this out. This has worm castings, ferrous sulfate, bone meal, fish bone meal, kelp extract, alfalfa meal. Remember I did a video on alfalfa meal, feather meal, remember that, feather meal, kelp meal, soybean meal, and calcite, which is a limestone. So really, I mean, I'm telling you, One Shot, anytime I do a transplant, anytime I amend soil, that's what this is. Now this is a 12-pound bag. I do it for the flowers, for the wife's flowers. I do it for everything. Before I put a plant in the ground, I use this and a blood meal, and this goes in the hole. This is a very slow release. And okay, so one of the things, and if you do studies on feather meal, or the like what you see in here, that's where I'm coming back to this, and I was kind of foot stomping that. Feather meal is a bigger producer of your calcium, and also in your plants. It's one of the biggest producers, even more so than kelp and everything, as far as, and that, you know, it is one of those things that it's bigger than guano, it's bigger than everything. So One Shot, I take that and I put it in every hole before I put the plant in the ground. Now while I'm doing that, how do I prevent root shock? Is I use Spartan Regiment. And the root shock, how that works is that because of what I'm giving it for nutrients, the first couple of days, what I do is I will do, this is the Bloom Chaos. Okay, and you guys hear me talk about all the time, Bloom Chaos effect and everything. But this also works really well on getting nutrients and to get the plant to uptake a bunch of the calcium and the nutrients that are in the soil. This hits those sensors on the bottom of the leaves and essentially triggers it to uptake food and all the micronutrients that are in your soil. The plant's going to start taking it, and that's the trigger, is this Bloom Chaos. So I spray a couple of days before I transplant. The other thing, and let me bring these out together. The other thing that before I transplant, I do my Spartan Regiment. But this one right here, this is called Herculean Harvest. This is the driver, the pusher for everything in the Nectar line, okay? And basically what this is liquid bone meal. More so, it has a lot of your phosphate in it, and it's derived from bone meal. It's really, it's the way that they do their bone meal is, you know, this is liquefied basically. What they do is they crush it down to it's a very, very fine powder, and then they steep it in the rainwater until it becomes the water becomes bone meal. I'll tell you one thing about this is you always got to shake it. You'll always see me shaking this. But the thing that goes with that, they intentionally pH this down. So this is at a low pH. When you do Nectar for the Gods, I discovered that you have to watch your pH. And you need that pH to be around 6.2 to 6.4 to optimize your Herculean Harvest. So what you always want to have with it is your Olympus Up. So I always have this, and this is liquid, basically liquid lime, as you can see there. And this will up your pH and take it to where you want. It doesn't take a lot. But my Herculean Harvest, I've got this and I've got another gallon out there. Whenever you hear me say bone grown, this is important. When I'm actually doing my Spartan Regiment, so the first thing that I do when I start in my Spartan Regiment is I bring in 10 milliliters of my Medusa's Magic. Okay, so this is the one that basically it's a soil nutrient. So I'm bringing in a nutrient here, and this one is, this is one that I like. For starters, if I only could do, like, say, well, what's the minimum I could do? One shot for sure. One shot for sure. In the liquid nutrients, I would do Gaiamania, which is this one right here. I would do Gaiamania and Herculean Harvest. Those two I just won't go without. I'm not going to. One thing you want, that I always want, is my Bloom Chaos. Folks, this isn't cheap, this gallon of Bloom Chaos, but that's how much it means to me to keep this around. Bloom Chaos is going to trigger that Bloom Chaos effect. So, I will be bringing in one other thing, and I'm really, really, really enjoying what this is doing. This is SLF 100. And what this is, it's called a cleaner on here, but this is an enzyme. And what it does is when I'm running my nutrients here and I'm doing my feedings, the SLF 100 goes in, the enzymes will go in, and it's a plant-based enzyme. In case anybody's wondering, OMRI, so you know that it's organic. All of this is organic, folks, I'm telling you. Now, just because you don't see labels all over these, trust me, they're organic. But it's anyway. So one thing, the three things for sure that I want is I want my Bloom Chaos. I want my Herculean Harvest, because the Bloom Chaos is going to trigger that you need a phosphate calcium. And I know people are like, well, what's the difference? Calcium's calcium. No, it's not really. Because like the calcium nitrates, like what you find in CalMag, is not going to penetrate fast enough through the root system. That they do this at Nectar for the Gods is this is uptake ready. This is plant ready right here, right now. Once I mix it, I shake it, and I make my mix, it's plant ready as soon as I pour it into and do my root soak. So, yeah. If you're calcium deficient, the wrinkly leaves and everything, I don't have that problem because this is a calcium-based nutrient line in it, and it really increases your microbial activity in your soil. Anyway, and then I would mix in my Gaiamania, which is intended originally to be your answer for your nutrients. And the Gaiamania, I'm telling you, this was a great one. So, Herculean Harvest, and then I do that. Now, what I do, this is my personal preference, and I really love doing this, is the Spartan Regiment. So, I'll explain this to you and really quick. Okay, so on my Spartan Regiment, I come in with my Medusa's Magic. That's my first, and break it down when you do it. I do the Medusa's Magic and I stir it into the water. After I get done with that, I come in with my Gaiamania. I do my Gaiamania that's prescribed amount for my Spartan Regiment. Then I come in with my Herculean Harvest. And this is going to, remember, this is my pusher and this is my driver. So once I get done with that, I'm going to come in and bring in my Zeus Juice. Now Zeus Juice is basically a kelp extract, and it's this one is a really good one for pushing your growth. Really good one, folks. And it helps sweeten up your peppers, your flavor. So this one, yeah, you want this one too. That's part of the Spartan Regiment. Now, once I get those ingredients put into my water, and I run a filtered water, my water, I already know what it is. When I get done putting in my nutrients, it only has 40 parts per million. I come in and I grab my Olympus up. This is a very key thing. If you have Herculean Harvest, again, you want to have the Olympus up. And then I take my pH up to 6.2 to 6.4. That's going to trigger my Herculean Harvest to really drive. And actually, it'll gas off CO2 at the root base of your plants. As we all know, CO2 in plants, they love CO2. So I'm actually, when I use my Herculean Harvest and I take it up where it needs to be, it's actually going to generate a CO2 gas at the root base, and their plants are going to uptake that. So, all right. Now, during this is one thing that I also have, the SLF 100. What is this for now? Now, I've been learning about this because this is my first year with it and what it does. Again, I actually, for one of my feedings a week, I do 2 feedings a week. I come in on this one once a week at 5 milliliters to a gallon. So 2.5 milliliters to my 5-gallon bucket. Now, that has another part. So that's going to go down. Those enzymes are going to break up all the microbial activity, any kind of dead cells or anything that's in your soil, and make it plant soluble, or the plant will uptake it. And what it doesn't, it breaks it down and it dissolves it so that it doesn't lock up it won't lock up your soil, it won't lock up your roots. It actually keeps things going, it keeps things moving. It can also, if you're into hydroponics, this can clean your lines. It's really good. You can amend your soil, like say you get your old soil, and I've heard people say, can you reuse soil? Yep. You put this in, you mix it up, and you soak your soil with it, like say on a tarp, and that will break down those root structure in there. No, it's not going to eat the roots that are in your plants. As you can see out here, none of these plants are hurting at all. They get that treatment of SLF 100 once a week. There's a lot of benefits behind that SLF 100. Feed them, water them in my Spartan Regiment, and that's how I do that. Now, one thing I do like to bring in, and I bring this in as they're getting closer, is I bring in the Athena aminos. And what this does is actually just kind of plump up and help with the pods and getting them bigger, fuller, hotter, flavorful. This is a really good thing. This is actually your nitrogen. So now I've just got a little bit of this one left. My gallon is empty, so I'm going to be reordering my Athena's aminos. That comes in the kits that I'm trying to give away. So here we go, Dementor's Destiny. There's 2 here that are not on there, and the reason I keep them. You guys might have seen me talk about this one. Liquid calcium. Dementor's Destiny. And this also is going to bring in your calcium phosphate. Remember me talking about that, and people that are calcium deficient? You might want to think about Dementor's Destiny as an added nutrient. And I do bring that in usually once, you know, every other feeding. I basically will differentiate between this is Aphrodite's Extraction Carbon, and my Dementor's Destiny, so every other week. So I'm really a Spartan Regiment Plus. So yeah, I add some things in. Also, this is what I use in lieu of using molasses in my actual teas. Yes, folks, I do just do straight compost tea and worm castings tea, but this is what I use in place of using molasses. And why do I do it? Because that is a less complex sugar base that my plants can uptake. So, and molasses, that's like putting big goop balls all over your soil. Does it break down eventually? Yeah. And the microbes, when you're doing your teas, they do feed on your molasses. They feed on that too. They'll do it just like molasses. The only difference is much quicker uptake to the plants. Even if you're just doing your compost tea or your worm casting tea, the Aphrodite's extraction carbon is what I use for that replacement. And that's your sucrose and glucose that'll the sugars that your microbes will eat. And I also use that in a feeding once every other week. So that breaks down what I do. Now I want to get to why do you guys always hear me. It's the same thing. Okay, first of all, let me explain something. My promo code, Papa Bear 20. Let me explain that. I have a very good relationship with Scott Ostrander. He's the owner, along with Frank, of Nectar for the Gods, Oregon's. Only Nectar for the Gods. I've always asked him questions. He's got awesome customer service. So you know what? When you realize somebody is in it for more than just money, that means something to me. That means something to me, okay? Scott's not just in it to make a buck. He really not. And he produces the best organic nutrients that I've ever seen. And if you ever go and watch their videos, you'll see what I mean. They produce, and it's not just about, you know, making these big vats. They could, and they could do the mass production like some other companies do. You're not going to find this in box stores. So, you know, that there's a reason, because usually when you're getting into a more dialed in, better quality nutrient, this is where you find it. Can you find it on Amazon? Yeah, but my promo code, all in caps, Papa Bear 20, it doesn't work on Amazon. It works when you go to OCG fan or OCG.com, Oregon's ConstantGardener.com, and that's their home site. And but this is the thing. I don't get paid. I'm not getting paid to do this. This is what I do. It's what I do as a pepper grower. We all look and we say, oh, I want this. We all look for what we consider to be that magic in a bottle, right? That the one thing that gives you the edge. Now, like I said, I buy these in gallons. Why? Because I don't want to worry about, you know, now I will buy in the quart bottles. I do. But I generally buy in gallons because, and they don't run out at the same time. I use a lot of my Herculean Harvest. However, I don't run out a lot. And when one runs out, it's a staggered type thing. So it's not like I run out of these real quick. The Bloom Chaos is not new. That's actually, I've had that and it lasts me because I keep it, first of all, I keep it in my shed, either my grow shed, and I keep it in a nice dark place. As well as I do all of these things. I've got a shelf in there, and that's my Nectar for the Gods shelf. Everything's in there, my mixing station and everything. I do it because I think that you guys out there in my pepper community, I think that I owe it to you to share it with you. You know, Scott doesn't pay me to do this. And if you ever want him, feel free to ask him. You know, I'm not paid. If you use my promo code, you know who gets the luxury of that? You do. And I'm okay with that. I do this because I know what kind of a person Scott is, and I know what kind of a product Nectar for the Gods is. That's why you guys always hear me out there on the pepper sites going, Nectar for the Gods, Nectar for the Gods. Nobody's paying me. I buy my stuff just like you would. I use my promo code just like you would. So, yeah, don't get it wrong. It's not, all of these gallon bottles up here are not given to me. I bought them just like you would, because I want to give my plants the best that I can. The one-shot granules, yeah, I bought it because it's worth it. Ask the wife how she likes her flowers, because they're just going crazy in all the flower beds up front. She loves it, you know, so why not? My plants are exploding, folks. I ain't kidding. You know what? That's not me making it up. You've seen them. I just gave you a tour of them. Don't ask me, ask them. You know, you'll see no calcium deficiencies. You know, the leaves, they just don't wrinkle over. And if I think they are, shoot, I'll just up the calcium and I'll pump more into it. But what I do is when I follow that Spartan Regiment, if I see one kind of acting up, I flush it. How do I do that? I take my Herculean Harvest and I mix my Herculean Harvest and I'll put a little SLF in there, and that's why I'm using that now, because the SLF is basically, it's working as a buffer. That SLF, I'm telling you what, it's beyond what it says it does, and what it does, and that is my moderator, I guess you could call it that. It makes sure that when I'm running my nutrients and I'm feeding like I am, that it helps to break down all of the stuff that I have in my soil. So my soil and my roots, they just keep going. They just keep generating. They just keep growing. Strong roots, strong plant, good fruit, good peppers. And they're going to be hot. I guarantee you, there's some of them in here that are just crazy. And I feed them out there too in my raised beds. That's why I do that. I got my containers out here in my raised beds, and I feed them the same. I go through 10 gallons of feeding. But to me, it's worth it. You know, and I could get a lot of things out there, but I've tried just about everything on the market. I keep coming back to this. I have an old video over on my other site. You'd see it where I was in my old greenhouse. It was an old greenhouse, and you'll see a self-feeding system, which I still have, and I'm messing with the fact of bringing it out because I can feed a bunch of these, but I really don't need to do that right now. If I were to go on vacation, I keep that as my backup system to make sure everything gets fed. But at any rate, it's what I choose, and I've been using this for years, and I keep, you know, I said, well, I'm going to try that, and come back, and I'm a little bit disappointed that my plants don't look like they do right now. And I see a lot of people that are either new to growing, or they've been at it for a while, and maybe you get frustrated. Maybe, you know, like you've been doing everything right, and you still have things just, man, what is wrong with mine? How come that person over there has got a grow going, and he may have his stuff dialed in with whatever it is that he does, you know? But I make sure that my peppers are consistent, and they grow. Man, the stems on these things, I'll tell you, man, most of them are big like that on my bigger ones, but even my small ones are big as my pinky. They're stout. I don't worry about them moving around. So that's what I'm getting at, is that the reason that you guys see me pushing on this, because I've been actually doing this and definitely promoting Bloom Chaos for a long time. But I'm really dialed in on the Spartan Regiment that's now going, and I'm telling you what, folks, that Spartan Regiment crushes. If you want to do, if you're a container gardener, or say a balcony gardener, or anything along that lines where you have ultimate control of your soil. Now I will say that my soil, I use I have a video on how I do my soil mix. And to me, that soil mix is exactly how I want to start. It's a part peach sphagnum, it's cocoa core, it's got some of my compost in it, and some of my worm castings, and I bring that together. That's what I start on my base, and it depends on what level on the transplant I am as to how I bring in more of one thing or the other. That's a topic, a different story. But there's also the soil that he sells at Nectar for the Gardens, and I promise you, if you have a grow store around you, an indoor grow store, and you can go home and get a hold of it, it's a Nectar's for the Gods. It's a Nectar number 4, and you grow with that sometime. It's clean. You ever worry about bugs? Don't worry about it. The only way you're going to get bugs there is if you bring them in somehow, either off the plant, off the soil that it was in. But a lot of times if it's inoculated correctly, you're not going to have that problem, and you're not going to have a bug problem. When I've used Nectar number 2 or Nectar number 4 soil, I've never had a problem with running with bugs. Usually I have problems with bugs when I use other soils in box stores. It's just like, you ever see that? Out of nowhere. They just appear, the aphids and the mites and everything else. I don't have as many problems because I know at the quality that they do their soil there. That's why I push this so much. This whole line, the SLF 100, and this is, just so you guys know, this is through South Cascadia, the South Cascade Organics Company. Newton Hayes, he's awesome. That dude is a mad scientist too. This is plant-based, folks. But anyway, I wanted to bring that to you because, you know, I thought about it. I was like, I remember somebody saying, man, you sound like you're selling that off. Well, yeah, I am. But I'm selling it the same reason that you would if you got excited about something. You're like, man, that stuff works. I get excited about it because, man, look at my plants. Look what they're doing. They're blowing up. And I'm getting ready to do that indoor grow. And I'm going to use this one is special. So I'm going to be doing some special seeds on that. I've been talking back and forth with Tony Sherwood, so we're going to work something there. So this is going to be a special grow under ideal conditions for a plant that he's been producing, and I've grown with Tony before. Tony and I help him out always. I send him a bunch of seeds, and he's grown some awesome ones. I tell you what, so Tony, yeah, that's a shout out for you, Tony Sherwood. He and I, we messed around with different crosses. But anyway, yeah, so I'm going to have Nectar number 4 soil. That's what I'm going to use for that indoor grow. If you're an indoor grower, that's a good thing to do because you start out with clean soil. And Nectar number 4 soil, if you're doing my Nectar products like I do, use Nectar number 4. It was designed to run Nectar for the Gods nutrients. It's designed to do that. It's got microzay in it. It's got nothing but beneficial nutrients. It's just teeming with microbes, folks. You're starting out with the best. And then, you know, you tell me what's going to happen when you start adding these boys in there with it. So, anyway, I just kind of felt like, you know, maybe people think, yeah, he must be getting paid to do that. Or I'm not getting paid nothing, folks. I'm not getting paid a penny for that. Anything just like you, I'm paying just like you are. But I want to, if I'm going to pay for a nutrient, I'm going to pay for the best I can. This is as close to synthetics as you can get and still be organic. No kidding. That's a fact. That is a fact, folks. There's a lot of people that grow cash crops with this stuff, and they will swear by it. And the yields they get when they use this pays for itself. Well, what if you could use, instead of me growing 300 plants, and I'm only growing around 100, what if I could, out of them 100 plants, get the same amount as I would out of 300 plants? How fun is it to maintain 300 plants? If I can do 100 plants and get the same yield as 300 plants, that's pretty good. Little more cost efficient to maintain 100 plants than 300, isn't it? So anyway, I'm roughly around 100 plants, but these are when I come in here, these things are under really good conditions in the greenhouse. This is my Pelham greenhouse, and they get this light in here. And I did run my lights for a while, and I'm still pushing a couple with some lower end lights, and it's helping. These are my Sansi lights. They're my augment lights that I use outside of my Spider Farmer lights. When I'm pushing, I'm using my Spider Farmer lights. But anyway, well, folks, that's basically an explanation. Why do I do it? Because I'm just as excited as anybody when I come across something that I know that works. It's the best made in the industry. Yeah, I said it, and I mean it. I've got a couple other guys, and they grow peppers. Dave Miner, you might know him. You might have seen Johnny Scoville eating peppers from Dave Miner and commenting on what a great grower is. Guess what he uses? You don't believe me? Ask him. He's a bone guy too, and that's what when you ever hear me say bone grown, that's Nectar. Nectar for the gods. Dave Miner grows with it too, you know, and I know him and I go back and forth and we talk. We get excited when we talk about it because we know what the capabilities are, and we know how our pepper plants are going to respond to it. And I'm telling you what, you're going to feel awesome when you see your plants just explode like they are in here. I thought for sure this year I lost it because I lost heat out in my grow shed, and I lost more than half of my crop. I had to come back late with my starts, and you can see where they're at now. They have exploded, you know, and so, yeah. Well, anyway, this is Harold with Papa Bear Peppers, and I hope I've showed you something about what's going on in the greenhouse, what's going on out there in the raised beds, and hopefully everybody's having a great grow season. And if you ever have any questions about this, please feel free to talk to me. And if I can't get the answer, I can talk to Scott, I can talk to Bob over there, you know, all of those guys over at Oregon's Constant Gardener over at Nectar for the Gods. I can ask them and get an answer for you if I don't have it. But I've been using this stuff for a long time, and you know, not as long as they've been around for 20 years, but I've been using it for a while, and once I got into it, I just can't get away from it. It's just a great product. So, anyway, this is Harold with Papa Bear Peppers. Have a great day and keep growing.